second after I turn it on, but I'm
Okay.
going to record. Welcome to Spoken World Online. The poet that we're about to hear, our featured poet, is named Roarshock, otherwise known as D.A. Wilson. I'm going to read his bio before he goes on. Roarshock, also known as D.A. Wilson, is a Northern California poet and storyteller based in San Francisco. His work has appeared in eccentric, obscure, and unknown publications, some of which he edited. His chapbook, First Hours of a Rainy Day and Other Poems, was published in 1997, and since 1998 he's been publisher and editor of Roarshock Page, a literary street flyer. To his great delight, someone has placed issues of Roarshock Page in the little magazine collection of the San Francisco Public Library. Roarshock believes strongly in public libraries and other public cultural spaces, free speech and free expression, and an open online world as exemplified by projects like Wikipedia and the Internet Archive and Spoken World Online. He opposes censorship, including cancel culture, all bigotry and inequality, and corporate control of art and culture. During the 2020 pandemic, he has sheltered at the ancestral home in historic Martinez, California, which has no ivory tower. Since he did not storm the walls of academia, he has had many mundane jobs, including warehouseman, coffee roaster, editor, newspaper critic and reporter, law librarian, and for 2 decades, coordinator in the flagship newsroom of the world's leading commercial newswire, with his thumb on the very jugular of capitalism. Despite all this experience, he would not want to be competing for a job with Bill Strangmeyer. Roarshock has read live on Pirate Cat Radio and Radio Valencia in San Francisco, and performed in venues as diverse as Adobe Books and the Jerry Garcia Amphitheater in San Francisco and Ocean Noir in Paris. In addition to continued composition, publication, and performance of his poems, future projects include writing a multi-volume mythological high fantasy adventure series and penning a 21st century children's book, the protagonist an anthropomorphic bear, for adults and children of all ages. The collected Roarshock Page and many other works are on his website, Roarshock.net. So please welcome Roarshock.
All right. Welcome everybody to Spoken World Online, week number 23. And I've been, these weeks and months, I've been mostly pulling stuff out of my archives. I've also been working on a poem, and it's turned into a huge, giant poem. So I've been trying to, it's still in progress, but I have put together sort of a selections and a condensed version. So here we go. Words to the soil. 2020, 2020. Hindsight is 2020. Such a long anticipated year. Here is a poem from inside 2020. That long ago, strange year, not soon to be forgotten. January held so much excitement and promise. On Groundhog Day, Puxatawny Phil did not see his shadow, predicted an early spring. I lit a candle February 2 for Persephone to light a way back from the deep underworld toward the promised return of spring. And I also wished James Joyce a happy birthday. February 3, near the end of my shift, I was summoned down a long hall to the Star Chamber, where creatures of culture awaited and informed me that after nearly 20 years of service, my job had been eliminated and I was erased from the family of the company. Escorted to the elevator by the Cretan, out forever from cursed 101 California Street without getting killed, I was feeling lucky and liberated, passing the tomb of Saint Stupid. I took the California Street cable car back up over the California Street hill. The next day I filed for unemployment insurance, and the day after that my mom had knee replacement surgery, so I waited at the hospital and stayed at her East Bay house. She required time to recover, first in the Antioch Hospital, then at a Concord nursing home. At the end of the month, a long-planned trip to Southern California and the strangeness of Los Angeles, and I found some special volumes at the last bookstore, and I fervently hope that bookstore will survive. On the way back upstate, talk was getting louder about the coronavirus causing much sickness and death in China and Italy. My mom was back home in need of assistance. I came out to stay for a while. Within a week, the novel COVID-19 virus was declared a global pandemic. In many places, including California, citizens were ordered to shelter in place, stay in their homes. My parents, Helga and John, bought this lot, a new house in 1972 for about 40 grand. Last house on a steep street, backing onto parkland, views down the hill, into the big valley and across to the looming form of Mount Diablo. The subdivision lots carved from the hill, there were native grasses and a few wild oaks and hard local dirt, not much else. John O. Wilson began to build the soil and create a remarkable garden. Many years and truckloads of horse manure shoveled into the gardens. Many times I was drafted to shovel shit. Writing this in 2020, nearing our half-century mark, beautiful, rich soil, sustained by precious, expensive water pumped up the hill. Water ever the concern, especially in dry years. But the soil remains, and when there is water, the garden blooms. A whole fortune cookie was left out in the backyard, and a blue jay ate it. Just the paper fortune ribbon remained. A feeling is an idea with roots. That was the blue jay's fortune. 48 years ago, there were lizards and frogs at the top of the hill, hawks, owls, and smaller birds, spiders, ants, and many insects, the occasional tarantula and garden snake. When the garden began, the gophers soon followed, the scourge of many flowers and crops. John O. fought a determined war against them, building the raised vegetable beds with wire mesh bottoms and mesh nets below his roses. There were always deer about and sometimes coyote. The gray ground squirrels migrated across the valley. Red tree squirrels came up the hill. The working cats and the big dog kept the vermin at bay. 2020 garden. John O. has been dead 6 years. The dog and cat are gone. The squirrels have had a field day. Majid the gardener fortified the vegetable beds, but the tree squirrels were still in the fruit trees. Come to late winter 2020, I am sheltered here, looking out the back door at the gray squirrels running across the deck. Majid set traps, catches and removes a few squirrels. There are a couple of traps out in the yard, one set to capture, the other set to crush. The squirrels never seem to go near the crushing one. A gray squirrel draws the bait from the catchy trap and springs it, but escapes. I go reset the trap, bait it with lettuce. A few minutes later, I hear it snap. The squirrel had come back. Now it was caught. It sat in there for days, furiously rattling. Thanks. These creatures were born to scatter seeds and feed hawks. I have seen a hawk drop straight down out of our acorn tree and swoop off into the evening with a doomed squirrel in its talons. But I did not want to be the cause of any stupid little creature's pain. I went over to the trap. The squirrel looked up with its mindless eyes, hissing at me in primal fear. I lifted the trap, the back door opened, and the squirrel slid out and scurried off, disappearing in the bushes. So I let that one go. Half an hour later, I went back out in the yard, and there was a huge red squirrel dead in the crusher trap. I cannot play God, not even with squirrels. The next day, there must have been 20 baby gray squirrels running all over the yard. Futile to trap them. Luckily, Xandar, the magnificent orange cat, has arrived. Squirrels are on notice and looking to keep it on the QT. The yard that my father built, the wooden fences and the brickwork, the bricks he salvaged from the Howard Street terminal. If the Oakland A's play baseball there in some future when people again congregate in ballparks, that field will be known to me as John O. Wilson Park. Scanning my father's slides and film negatives, I cannot really see clearly what they are until I open them up on the computer screen. In addition to all the holiday pictures and his thousands of wild western landscape photographs, John O. also documented the top of the hills changing eras and evolving gardens. I open a new scan and see him building the wall of this courtyard, where for months I have shared my poetry via spoken word online. Top of the hill, MTZ, on some dark nights, also known as Troll Hall atop Troll Hill. Always under sun, stars, and moon. Casa Cantorosa, the house of the Book of Roses. Helga and John's little hobby. Now there are well over 300 different roses in the yard. In spring, a riot of scents and colors. Helga has cut flowers brought inside to arrange in her vases. The outside garden comes inside. Sometimes the roses fade and lose their sweet scent. And as the summer heats, then she does arrangements with sunflowers that look like Van Gogh paintings come to life. Before settling in, so to speak, to confinement here, I brought from San Francisco many files containing decades of tax, business, education, and employment records. Other files contain poetry and scattered writings. Between household chores, I dug deep into those files, working the first extensive index of my poems, consigning ancient tax documents to the shredder. Helga said, "Go ahead and add that shredded paper to the compost heap. It is good for the soil." Yes, these ancient documents no one ever wants to see again. Churn them into the compost. Create new soil to feed this ground at the top of the hill, to grow even more delicious fresh herbs, fruits, and vegetables. Some of the writing files had multiple copies of drafts of poems. Aha! I ran some of those extra old poems through the shredder, and some copies of Roarshock page, and all these poetic words fed back to the soil. Next year to be eaten via the beets and carrots, potatoes, garlic, and lettuce. You are what you write. You are what you read. You are what you eat. Poetry, we transcend time. The poet, the writer, transcends being stuck in body and the turning of the seasons in the finite field of existence. 2020, now there was a year, and poets were active to show they were here. The bars closed down. Everybody went inside. Spoken Word Paris went online. I tuned in. Roarshock, David Barnes said. There's a name out of the past. Presently here, I come from the future. Many have said it. I sincerely mean it. The shutdown continues for many weeks. Spoken World Online gathers every Monday night from Paris, midday along the U.S. West Coast. I look forward each week to familiar names and faces, distinct voices, and solid poetry. The microphone virtually passed to me. I feel flutters of stage fright. This is an audience of poets, and none of them fucking around about poetry. And I always ended my set energized, any fears melted away, because the poets are kind. Whatever strange or silly thing I might have read, and from Paris and our different cities and the soil of our continents, we recited the words from our imaginations. All the natural horrors of permafrost melting in Siberia, sending up methane clouds, and aqua alta, high water submerging ancient Venice. Then the planes stopped and the impossible gridlock on the highways ended. The canals in Venice ran clear and full of fish. Skies above Los Angeles and the Diablo Valley clearer than anyone could remember. It was quiet enough to hear the wind chimes on the breeze. Sun came out and the darling buds of May. Youth went wild, as youth will do. They flocked to frolic on beaches and parks and swimming pools, and 3 weeks later into hospitals and on to graveyards. Whatever their beliefs, they are counted in statistics. The virus does not care that they were people. Not all of them are dead yet. And the radicalized youth pour out into the streets as they have before, but unlike before. And the asshole supremacists have this time perhaps looked too far down their noses. When Paris opened back up, David Barnes took spoken word offline and outside, but David Leo Sawa took over the online helm from Canada, and we sailed on through our global space. Amsterdam, Berlin, Barcelona to Morocco, New York, New Orleans, Chicago, Los Angeles, Jakarta. Sumeriz akuminin, ludsing cuckoo. Turning of seasons and the first half of plague year 2020 already subject of revisionist history. The poem arrives in bits and fits, difficult nights for sleep in seclusion. I awake in the dark. I'm not sure of the direction, where I am pointed on the earth, if I am facing the wall or facing out into the room. My shirt draped over the chair. Perhaps a figure? No, there are no figures but my own during this seclusion. This little corner room, more or less everything in my universe already happened to me in here. No need for any fear, but for the heat of the wave crashing through the roof. More days like that every year. Avoid the sunstroke. July approaches. Economic society begins to open up. The empty highways have more traffic, and there is more traffic in the air. From the top of the hill, I look out over Diablo Valley. The green hills of spring have changed into the golden hills of Northern California, and the impossible blue sky of April has now regained the unnatural, unhealthy brown smog we all know too well. Baseball returns to television with canned crowd noise and paper cutout fans in the stands. Feels like watching a paper puppet play or being inside Dr. Parnassus's Imaginarium. Play ball. Reinvigorated in poetry, 2,300 scans into my project archiving family history for safekeeping and future space travel. I have no idea what or if my next paid job will be. As of now, and right understandably, the EU will not let Americans in if they are ugly or even if they are cool. If this poem will be read in Paris, it might be a while, because I will want coffee at my familiar cafe and drinks in specific special bars. I will want to stand and read of words to the soil while the walls sweat in the cellar of A Chat Noir. All day long, the hummingbird is flying in the wind. As night darkness descends, Xandar and I are on the back deck, listening to raccoons and crickets chattering down the hillside, a startling screech as the huge owl flaps through the yard to perch in the plum tree. August rolled along. Suddenly the squirrels were all gone. Did they all infest another yard without an imported cat? Did the idiot Clancy next door poison them all? That, I hope, is not the explanation. From dozens of gray squirrels invading to zero, not knowing when or if they might return. So long as Xandar remains, they will not feel welcome. Apparently, war with the squirrels has concluded for the season, but you never know. The shredded papers of my shredded words escape the compost heap and merge with the vegetables and roses. I see them converge with the soil near the old horseshoe pits, dissolving into a clear mulch, strengthening the soil. Next year's potatoes, next year's salad will be nourished by my own words, bringing together the world of words and letters that binds together, transforms and transcends time and place, connected to the physical earth, this place and this soil, and the seasons circle around. 2020, 2020. Foresight is 2020. Such a long, strange year. If you told someone in the past or from the future about 2020, they might well laugh, say it could not possibly happen. Well, here is a poem from inside 2020, and it most certainly did happen. And I fed words to the soil.
Roarshock?
Yeah, I'm done.
Why were you at war with the squirrels to begin with? I feed them.
No, that's because they want to eat the vegetables. They want to eat all the plants in the garden, see? That's
They're basically poets, Roarshock, by your very definition. They're eating your poems, and they're poets themselves.
well, that's true, but that's part of the cycle of life. You know, it's like I said, their existence is. And then also, you thought that after a few of
Their
them.
existence is dependent on your poetry.
Yeah, I love your words, nourishing next year's potatoes and nourishing, being fed to the soil.
I thought the part about the squirrels was a bit heavy, I must admit, but I decided to leave that in.
Memorable, definitely.
Maybe if you ate a couple of squirrels, you'd increase your vocabulary.
I'm not that hungry yet, Bruce.
No, he would just chatter.
I know a guy that tried to pet a squirrel and got bit real bad.
Yeah, no, don't go near them. So, anyways, thanks everybody very much for being here, and that was fun.
Excellent.
Thank you, Arjit.
Thank you, Roarshock.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Yes, wonderful, Roarshock.
You guys all rock.
You reminded me of Frost. I've heard Frost read, you know.
Yeah.
Just reminiscing of, yeah.
Yeah, I never heard him. He died when I was too young, but I have heard recordings of him reading, and he was.
Yes, it was very reminiscent. I loved it.
Yeah, thank you.
When he read at the Kennedy inauguration,
He did.
It was really sad to watch him, I think.
Yeah, but he was fabulous, though. His description, and Rorschach is describing, and I love the trolley car in San Francisco. You said to California.
Well, that used to be my commute, up and down the Carlos Ferry Street cable car line.
But I actually got on that trolley with you. I actually felt it.
Good.
Yeah, that was good.
Good.
Rorschach's bio, I just told him earlier, reminds me of Charles Bukowski, who got me into this whole poetry gig.
That's so cool.
Your bio is itself, it's a poem.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to read the whole thing just as you wrote it.
Yeah.
And Roarshock, if you like, and we can record this also, I just wanted to read your poem.
Oh, I would be delighted if you would do that, David.
Okay, so I'll start recording again. It's nice that we got some of the audience praise at the end of the recording as well, and thank yous and stuff. So I'll start recording and introduce your poem.
Okay.
Welcome to Spoken World Online, number 23 on the 18th of August, 2020. This is a poem by Roarshock, also known as D.A. Wilson, a poem I love very much, and I'm happy to read to you because he asked. This is called First Hours of a Rainy Day. Lines in Oakland lines. Endless freeways in California. Misty forests and angel minstrels. All is all is lines. Loved the girl. He loved the girl. Orange thinness, yellow sun, springs and clocks, human fetus, incredible photos, beetles in yellow submarines, a circle is magic, child's art and pumpkins grand, such a perfect smile. No more, gone. All is darkness, never ending. The sun's not seen in Oakland, but the lines are in the painter's eyes.
Thanks, David.
You're welcome. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for asking me. It's wonderful to read someone else's poem, just as it's wonderful to hear your own work being read by someone
It
else.
is. It's very interesting.
Really. It's mutual goodness. Yeah, I've had people perform my poems memorized, two different ones by two different women in Paris, and it was an honor and it was like startling to hear myself read by them. And
Yeah. It's a total
Yeah,
different take.
Rorschach, I just wanted to say thanks for the plug in your autograph.
That's true. Let's just not apply for the same jobs there, Bill.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll get a job offer out of it.
There you go.
yeah, I loved your reaction, Bill, and I love that that nod of the head there. It was very funny.
Rorschach, you have to add Atlanta to your list of geographical.
Oh, well, I was just trying to get a representative of the wide breadth of our, and I know I didn't get every place in, and I sort of,
Edit.
yeah, but yeah, I mean,
But
this is the short version of the poem, okay?
I like that the whole idea of, like, if somebody was in the future or the past, that this is, I think that that's also sometimes, if somebody had said to, like, I moved here a year ago when I was, it was very early morning, I was with my sister-in-law on the deck of her house, and I was really early, and I was making a decision if I should move here and move to New York. And so we were adding up, because my mom was in assisted living and she was getting very sick, and I wanted to be with her that last, few months or year. And so we were adding up the pros and cons. I was always saying, like, can you imagine if one of us was a psychic and said, I went to a psychic, Rhonda, you have to move here because next year, 2020, there's going to be a pandemic, so definitely move here. I would have thought, like, the psychic was fucking insane and a charlatan, like, the dumbest psychic reading I ever fucking had. If there's going to be a pandemic, you should definitely be in New York and go live in your family, blah, blah, blah. There's no way that anybody, I think, could imagine, or I would imagine that's how. So when you say that, it just reminds me of, like, the feelings I would have, like, I think and what's going on with Trump and everything,
Yeah.
this crazy everything is so unbelievable. So I just love that whole idea of if somebody's in the past or the future,
They'll say,
they're
nah.
2020 is life, and you're in it right now. Reading your poem. Really like that idea.
Thanks.
Amazing, too, Rorschach, how not only do you have the vivid descriptions of animals and insight into them and their lives and fears, but also then you reflect on humanity and time and all kinds of things that are, like water underneath the images. It's quite something. So it expands.
I've had a lot of time to think about that kind of stuff in the last since February. So anyways, thanks again, David, for inviting me to do this.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
As we were missing a featured poet, so I got it.
Right.